Okay, Bijan Taghavi here with a really exciting lesson for you today. This is one of my most requested lessons. This is a playing analysis of my comping over the tune Do Nothing Till You Hear From Me. This is from a live performance with Rodney Whitaker's group at the Dirty Dog Jazz Cafe. And we're just going to go over me comping for the intro and also the head-in behind vocalist Rockelle Fortin. And you know, I mentioned this is one of my most requested lessons. I was kind of iffy on doing it because, you know, I feel uncomfortable talking about my own playing, you know, because there's so much to get out there from the masters and, you know, the real legends of this music. But I figured this is actually a good one to go over because you get to see a lot of what I talk about throughout my teaching and my studies applied here as far as comping is concerned. You know, what I call Orchestration 1 and Orchestration 2 comping voicings, for example. Orchestration 1 being the middle of the piano, okay, either 4-note voicings is Orchestration 1, or we have 5-note Orchestration 1 voicings with 4th voicings, quartal harmony. We have larger Orchestration 1 plus voicings with, you know, 6-note voicings and more clustery kind of things. Orchestration 1 is sort of that middle of the piano, and then Orchestration 2 is left-hand rootless voicings, either 3 or 4-note rootless voicings, right-hand octave plus 1. You know, so something like, you know, whereas Orchestration 1 is going to be or, right, or. Okay, so you know, you get to see a good amount of Orchestration 1, Orchestration 2 comping voicings, but even beyond the voicings, a lot of things like comping textures. You know, there's some, for example, sidestep comping textures that create cool rhythmic effects, different comping rhythms. I even do a glissando in there, you know, and so there's a lot of various textures and ways that we can create syncopation, and also the idea of supporting the melody and how my comping is informed by the melody and filling in spaces and all those good things that we talk about. So a lot of the concepts that we talk about in lessons as it deals with comping shows up here. So without further ado, let's listen to this, and then we'll talk about it some more. I'll analyze it. We'll go through it piece by piece. Okay? Here we go.
Do nothing till you hear from me. Pay no attention to what I say. Why people tear the seams of anyone's dream is over my head. Do nothing till you hear from me. At least consider our romance. If you should take the words of others you heard, I haven't a chance to have been seen with someone new. But does that mean that I've been untrue when we're apart? The words in my heart reveal how I feel about you. Some kiss may cloud my memory, and other arms may hold a thrill. But please do nothing till you hear it from me, and you never will.
Okay, and there we have it. So a lot of things to analyze here. Let's start with the intro. And the intro, by the way, is just a 1-6-2-5. The way we do this, we do it 4 times, and then we get into the tune. So in the transcription, the head-in starts at measure 9. And that's all we're looking at here, just the intro and the head-in. And there's plenty to go over just in that. So that's all I want to cover here. And let's start with that intro. So actually, Rodney just started it himself on bass, and he just did basically the first 1-6-2-5. None of us are really playing because he just started it without, you know, counting it off or telling us or whatever. So when we all come in, that's basically the second repeat, right? So we do it second and then third and then fourth time, and then the head-in comes in. Okay, so let's listen to that, and then I'll walk you through that. Okay, so that's the first time. And then here we go. Okay, so right there, a couple things I want to point out. I start by playing the strong 5 chord before F, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay. You notice I'm starting out orchestration 2, by the way. So left hand playing rootless voicings, 3 or 4 note, right hand octave plus 1 or octave plus 2 polychords. And in the PDF, you notice I wrote F. I didn't write F major 7, I didn't write F7. The character of this tune, at least the way we play it, is sort of a bluesy character, a bluesy vibe. So a lot of times in that situation, you turn the 1 major into a dominant chord. So F major oftentimes becomes F7 here. But I started out by keeping it vague here. Right? And I'm not giving away the 7th, whether dominant or not. I just keep it vague. A 3-note 4th voicing. Right? And this also allows my right hand to work, by the way, this root up here. Because if I did major 7th here, like if I did 3, 5, 7, 9 voicing, for example, this would clash. Okay? So just those little things to keep in mind voicing-wise. So you notice rhythmically, I start out just by laying some strong downbeats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And then here, I threw in some syncopation. Right? So that's always a thing you'll notice throughout, a balance between downbeats and upbeats to lay down the time, but then also to create syncopation. You don't want to just, not provide any sense of strong time, but at the same time, that's what the job of the bass and drums is. Right? Especially in this setting here, they're doing that. Playing quarter notes on the ride and bass is walking. Right? So that leaves room for you to create the syncopation as the comper. Right? You don't need to do that all the time. But it's good to, I started with that here. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 8. Okay? That's a cool little movement there because I actually threw in a melody as part of that too. Right? I could have just gone. But I actually went back and forth between this F and this A flat top note, and I'm almost creating a little bit of a melody. Right? That's a good little movement right there, a good little 5-to-1 movement, by the way, that you can just extract from here. Learn that through the keys, for example. There's many ways that you can take things away from this to practice, right? And that's one right there. So that's going C7 to F. For example, if you went G7 to C, what would that be? Okay, what's our melody? So in C it would be, right, so our voicing, we have G7. Okay, for example. Anyway, continuing on. After that, again, more downbeats. That's a sub, by the way. So I go, here's F7 also, right? Remember I mentioned how sometimes I play F7, sometimes F major, sometimes I leave it vague. In this case, I went F7, right? Especially since I came from that blues idea. Here's D7, altered. And here, notice this is just descending, right? Voicing-wise, this is cool. So I went G7, right? Since this dominant's functioning, I could sub this with a G7, which I did. And that leads you to C7, nicely. And that's just descending chromatically, right? So that's a cool little voicing movement you can learn, too. This is using fourths, basically. And then I descend into my 4-note orchestration 1 voicings. Okay, so notice how I condensed from within a span of 8 bars. I went from orchestration 2, right, and then it kind of manifested itself into an in-between zone with an orchestration 1 where I'm doing 5-note 4th voicings. Okay, and then that condensed itself into the 4-note voicings, the orchestration 1 4-note voicings. And again, that melody, always thinking about melodies when comping, right? Same melody as, right, at least top note-wise. And I love this voicing here for F7, okay, with the root up top. But as a melody note, that root is really hip in this case, for a dominant chord at least. Right? Again, you wouldn't want to do that major 7 because that's going to clash. Okay? And the way this intro ends is it goes, right, so F over A, B flat diminished, and then F over C. Okay? And voicing-wise, I actually wasn't expecting that while we were playing it live because, I mentioned how we repeat this 4 times, and Rodney played it himself the first time. So when we came in, it was the second time. But I was thinking when we came in, it was the first time. So that's why I wasn't even ready for it. But I heard that when it happened. That's why here I was still playing F7, not an F triad. But then once I heard the... That's when I adjusted and I... Right? And you could see in some spots like that, little arrangement spots like that, it's fine to play bass notes, right? I just played bass notes and triad. Okay, so that's the intro basically. Okay, let's listen to that and then we'll go into the head in from there. Okay, so there, notice when I came in, just to change the texture, I came in with Orchestration 2 voicing. And I'm keeping things really light also, dynamically. Light, short, and then even though I started out with downbeats, then I went into upbeats. So I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Here, so and. Okay, that's a cool little move right there. And that's again, as far as taking some of these movements and learning them through the keys. That's a cool little 2-5-1 right there. Okay, so you can learn, just take that and learn that through the keys. But what I want to specifically point out is, right, again, thinking of the melody here. So with my Orchestration 2 voicing, I did this for B flat major 7, which leaves room, because I chose that B flat as my +1 note, that leaves room to go, right? That's just a cool little thing, melodic comping wise there. And then the next bar, again with the melodic comping.
Why people tell the seams of anyone's dream is over my head. Do not.
Okay, so also something you want to keep in mind is, especially comping for a vocalist, you want to be supportive of them. And a lot of times, I'm trying to fill in her spaces, right? That's a little bit tough too to comp with another horn player, because oftentimes horn players who are not experienced or are not good at this sort of thing, they tend to overplay, right? And that gets in your way as the comper, because what you want to do as the comper is fill in the spaces. You can do some playing when the vocalist is also singing, but you don't want to step on her zone really. You want to fill in her spaces. And if the horn players do that, then that takes away from what you can do also. But in this case, Chris Glassman, or as I call him, Maestro Glassman on trombone, he's an expert at this, and he does a really nice job of adding to the whole comping situation, but not getting in our way, you know, as the pianist comping. So he did a really nice job of that. In that last 4 bars, you notice, and actually every time this happens, if you look measure 13, if you look at those 4 bars, if you look at the measure 21, those last 4 bars, if you look at measure 37, so the last 4 bars of each A section, I do this similar kind of thing, where I do this just offbeat comping, so 1 and 1 and 3 and that's a technique just to try to link up with the rhythm section, right? Try to link up with the drums. Sometimes that can be obnoxious, especially with a vocalist, but the way this melody works, I decided that works nicely in that moment, and that's what I went with. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Okay, and there is a cool little thing where that's a cool, you know, chromatic lead up in general, you know. Right, so that's common just in other comping situations. In this situation, I'm doing this, right, which is basically E flat 7, E7, F7, in place of, right? But the thing is, it works, because the bass is just playing this. So really, as the pianist, you have control of the harmony, right? So if I do this, let me try to reach this with one hand. Right? It still works, right? Whether you do or right, it just has a different effect. So it just has the effect of you're playing E flat 7, and B flat just happens to be in the bass, and you're playing E7, and B happens to be in the bass, you're playing F7, and C happens to be in the bass. Okay? So that's what I chose to do there in that situation. So you can call it a sub kind of a little bit. Let's play it from there and then go into the second A.
Let's say why people tell the seams of anyone's dreams is over my head. Do nothing till you hear from me.
Okay, a little cool texture there. Sometimes, especially nowadays, I really overdo this. I do this more than I should, but it's a cool little texture. It adds something different, and it sets up a new section especially, right? So I did a little glissando there. And the way that I do glissandos is I'll start low. I do with my right hand, okay? So, or in this case, you can also do it with your left hand. Sometimes you can do like a... But in this case, I go... Right? And you don't want to hurt yourself while you do this. You know, I sort of think of it as it changes every time, but you put your palm up. It's really your nails that are doing it, kind of like your middle finger nail and sort of your second finger a little bit. You know, I guess these back 3 fingers. The thing with the glissando is, you know, it's not, within the glissando it's not rhythmic, but where you start the glissando and where you end it, that's got to be clear rhythmically. So, you know, if I went 1, 2, 3, 4. So basically it's the length of a half note in this case. So I made sure to come in on beat 3, and especially when you end it, right, this has got to come in where you want it to come in. Okay, and then come in strong with that too. Okay.
Do nothing till you hear from me. At least consider our romance. If you should take the words of others you heard, I have.
Okay, again you see in the last 4 bars of the A again, you see those offbeat comping. So the and of 1, and of 3, and of 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and there I did a little bit of a movement during C7, bar 22. Right, so this is just, you can think of this one of 2 ways. You can think of it as just like a chromatic approach, because this is the ultimate voicing you're targeting for C7 altered. So I just started, I kept the top note the same, but the bottom 3 notes, just chromatic above into that. Or what this really is this is actually G7. So it's basically like turning C7 into a little mini 2-5. So I went from G minor 7 and then G7, C7. Right? But that sort of chromatic approach like that creates just even a little more of a bluesy effect, as opposed to if I just went, which is fine to do that, but this sounds so much slicker right here. Let's talk about the first 4 bars of that second A. A main theme I want to point out there is another comping texture. So I talked about glissando as a comping texture, but another one is to do this sort of sidestep movement, the sidestep comping texture. Measure 17, I went, here's a sidestep, right? And then measure 19. B flat minor. Okay, and this is a great thing that you can insert yourself. You don't want to overdo this. It works particularly nice with minor chords, and you notice that's where I did it here. Here I did an Orchestration 2 version of it for C minor 7, and then here I did an Orchestration 1 version of it with B flat for B flat minor 7. Right? And it's just everything comes up chromatically and then goes back down to the target voicing. And the way it works, the reason it works is because of this rhythm, right? And both help each other. This works because of that rhythm, but also this makes that rhythm, right? Because if you just did that rhythm without the sidestep, it would sound pretty vanilla. It would sound pretty corny, right? If you just went... but to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and. That sounds really hip. And when you play that rhythm, remember the articulation principles, so that actually has an effect here, right? It's not, but instead it's connected. Do-da. Right? So do-da. It's not do-da. Right? So there's no space, and also emphasizing that do-da, emphasizing that and to 4 a little bit. But that's a really swinging comping rhythm, and it works hand in hand with that sidestep comping texture there really nicely. Okay. So let's play that second A again, and then we'll go into the bridge from there.
Do nothing till you hear from me. At least consider our romance. If you should take the words of others you heard.
Okay, one little detail I want to point out there actually is, and I do this later in the transcription too, but just to create a syncopated effect. Right, that's another way I create more rhythmic action than if I just played it as one block voicing. So I actually use the root to help me there. Right, and that's a cool, really cool texture right there. So I go M4, okay, just to create some more syncopation. And I mentioned I do that later, especially in the bridge. Okay, so here, let's go to the bridge, and I'll point out where I do it there. It happens all over measure 29 and 30. So let's go to the bridge.
I haven't a chance to have been seen with someone new, but does that mean that I've been untrue when we're apart? The words in my heart reveal how I feel about you.
Okay, so right there you heard measure 29, 1, 1, and 2. Okay. Okay. And then the very next chord, 2. So I anticipate that D7 a little bit early. So I went. So this part, if you can reach this, because you're not going to be able to get that connected effect if you jump up like that. So this has to be connected. 1. Right, so no space between that. And that bass note is the one that's accented kind of to create that syncopation. Okay. A little bit earlier than that, I want to point out leading into the bridge actually. So here, so I accidentally went into this for a moment, but you notice I recovered, right? I almost went into the E flat 7, E7, F7, but then here, I just recovered to an E flat minor voicing. Right? This is not really a typical voicing you would ever play, but just because of where I was, I just tried to access E flat minor tones, just create a voicing out of it, right? And this actually worked nicely. It's a nice little fourth voicing. And then I'm creating a melody with my comping. Right? And that's how I get from the 4 note, by the way, to this bigger sort of in between the Orchestration 1 plus and Orchestration 2 here. Right? And then also keeping in mind my extension. So keeping in mind what the melody is. You know, something I haven't mentioned yet, but something that's really important when comping for vocalists is you need to know the melody. You need to know the melody for 2 reasons. Number 1, that informs where the spaces are in the melody, and that's where you want to fill in. Okay? But number 2, you'll know which comping voicings are acceptable to use and not, in terms of which top notes are acceptable and other notes that you fill in with the voicing, because you don't want to create a clash, right? Say this voicing, you know, if she was singing an E natural, you know, and you're playing an F, that's going to clash, right? So you want to make sure that your voicings are compatible with the melody. Whatever harmonic extensions you use, especially for dominant chords, you want to make sure that's in sync. But also with top notes too. So you want to just keep that in mind. Measure 25, this was cool right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. In terms of rhythmically, syncopation, and we just stay on that D flat major there. Rodney played this little bass line. So that gave me a signal to stay on D flat major. Sometimes he plays the changes where he does a 1 6 2 5. And if he did that, then I would do that with my comping too. Right? But I notice he's staying here, so I'm going to stay here with my voicing too. Again, creating a little bit of a melody here where I have space with my voicing. So I'm playing a 6-note sort of fourth voicing. And then I'm using this 9 as my sort of pivot note. Which is really cool. It gives a nice effect. And then keeping that, it's a nice little texture there to keep it short. I start with downbeats and then it goes to some upbeats. Then you have a nice release rhythm here in measure 28. 1, 2, and do, da, right? And similar thing there, by the way, with creating movement during that that chord there. I start out as G minor 7 flat 5, but then to create a bluesy effect, I go. You could either do sharp 9 here, you could do flat 9. It doesn't matter specific voicing wise, but in terms of the quality, I went G7, not G minor 7 flat 5. I went G7 here to C7. Okay. So that's the bridge. Then that leads us into the last A. So let's keep it going from here.
Call my memory, and other arms may hold the thrill, but please do not until you hear it from me, and you never will.
Okay, so again, the last 4 bars, you notice a similar thing with that offbeat 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And by the way, a lot of times, as you see through this transcription, there's a lot of orchestration too. So that's not to say orchestration 1 wouldn't work, but it just shows you the power of orchestration 2, that a lot of this is orchestration 2. And something, just voicing-wise, something you could do is you could compare that specific part, those 2 bars of the A section where it goes A7, D7, G minor, C7. So that's measure 13, 14, it's measure 21, 22, measure 37, 38. And see how it's different and how it's similar, voicing-wise. So measure 13, I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Measure 21, I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Measure 37, I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. One thing I immediately just noticed right now is the G minor 7 voicing is the same every time. But the approach to the C7 changes every time. The D7 is similar a couple times, and then one time the voicing changes. And the A7 voicing is similar, but one time it's orchestration 1, one time it's orchestration 2. So those are just some things you can notice as you go through this. What parts are, especially with the A sections that repeat. Look at, do what I call a visual stacking analysis. Take the similar parts, like the first bar of the A section, or the first 2 bars of the A section, or measure 3, 4 of the A section, or measure 4, 5, 6 of the A section. And look at those side by side and see what's different and similar. So the last A, I went to what I call double down voicings. And why did I do this? And what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? What are double down voicings? Double down voicings are when you're just doubling down on the guide tones. So just the essential notes. Just thirds and sevenths. Last time I did a little bit of a twist, right, rather than just 7, third, 7, third. And you notice I'm keeping the common tone, I'm holding that. Right, so it's only the B that moves to the C. The F stays there. So the reason I went to those double down voicings there is because Rodney plays this tune with a slight harmonic change to the last A. typically, the way this tune was written by Duke Ellington, that last A is the same as the first A. So it's, you know, F major 7, da-do, ba-do, ba-do, ba-do. C minor 7, ba-do, 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 ba-do. Okay? But the way Rodney does it is he substitutes that and he throws in these descending 2 5s. D minor 7, da-do, ba-do, ba-do, ba-do. G7, C minor 7, ba-do, 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 ba-do. B minor 7, E7, and then back to the regular changes. So, in order to emphasize that, I really just wanted to make that clear, just bring out the guide tones, right? Because if I disguise the voicings, then the harmonic sub is not going to come across clear and as powerful as if I just lay down those double down voicings. So that's why I went to that approach there. That's something too that it's not the most complicated advanced voicing, but it's something that is not natural to do. So it's something that you may want to practice just so you have that as part of your arsenal and ready to go. Okay. But this does it for this comping analysis here. A lot to take away. So analyze this yourself too. If there's things that I didn't go over that you were really interested in, you know, compare it with the transcription. Look at the transcription, listen to the recording, and you know, take away what you want to take away from this. There's a lot to take away. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I dive much deeper with all these concepts, and I have separate lessons about how to actually practice each one of these things, from the sidestep comping texture to the double down voicings to the orchestration 2 comping voicings to various comping rhythms and things. So we actually dive deeper in this, and I show you how you can actually implement this in your playing. But I hope this analysis was helpful for you. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. There's going to be a lot more great things coming here, so stay tuned for the next lesson. Hope you enjoy this. Until next time, take care.